Hi again, this is Genevieve from the blog gracefullyhome.com, and today I am coming to you from our hayloft here in our barn. There's nothing super special about this barn. It's old. We just basically used materials that we already had to build it up and to update it for the needs of our family, which we're constantly doing here on the farm. But because I was coming out here to gather some eggs, I thought I would share some of the ways that we prepare for those unforeseen circumstances that tend to happen before we even know it. So come and join us for some behind the scenes of how we are preparing. Since buying our property 10 years ago and moving here full-time 8.5 years ago, we have experienced times of drought, flooding, freezing temperatures, damaging storms, and a lot of power outages. Each situation taught us something new. So today I want to address the food part of how we prepare for those unforeseen circumstances. Early on, when we were making the transition to living more naturally, I thought that we just basically had to purge our home of everything that was considered toxic or bad for our family. And that's a good thing because we shouldn't be living with those types of materials and that kind of food anyway. But I had this all or nothing mentality, and so it kind of made it a little more challenging in the beginning. So if we were to do it all over again, I think that I would have done it a little slower and just basically like got rid of all the things that I knew for sure were bad for us, and then slowly replace things as we would finish them off, whether it was, let's say, herbs or spices or certain foods, instead of just like throwing everything out. Because financially that was kind of a little harder on our wallets. But if every time we finished a product, even like a cleaning product, and then we just replaced it for something that was more natural, that probably would have been a little less of an impact on the family. A lot of what we do here on the farm is trial and error. We have discovered something about ourselves where we overplan things sometimes, actually a lot. And the farm taught us that sometimes you just really need to keep it simple. You don't have to have all of the answers before you try something. So with our garden, I knew a little bit and my husband knew a little bit, but until we really started to get our hands dirty, literally, we didn't gain that experience until we were actually doing it ourselves. Like, we can read in books and we can look online, but until you actually do it, you don't get the full effect. So when we started our garden here on the farm, it was a lot different from when we were growing vegetables in pots on our back deck in upstate New York. And so the more we do it, the more we learn. And each growing season, we try different methods on how to do things. Some of the methods work really well, and other methods we find really don't work for what we're trying to do here on our farm. And that's okay. There's lots of different techniques out there, and you just have to find the ones that work best for your area and your growing seasons. Recently, we made some dandelion jelly, which was the first time that we had made it. And there was some trial and error, like I mentioned before. We did end up having to reboil the liquid and then adding some more pectin and sugar, but eventually it did give us that consistency that we wanted once we had removed the liquid from the heat and then also just let it cool down. People say that it tastes a little bit like honey, and it really does. Eventually we do want to keep our own bees, but unfortunately we've tried twice now and we've failed twice. So we have been trying to research and see what we did wrong, and then of course try to fix that and then be able to have our own honey. That is something that we really are wanting to strive for. We also added chickens, which has been such a blessing because they lay so many eggs. Sometimes we don't even know what to do with that many eggs. So we do sell them at church. We sell them at my husband's work. And then there is a Saturday market for farmers and bakers that's going to be coming up in our local area, and I'm really excited about that because I hope to be able to sell some of our artisan sourdough bread, as well as maybe some of our fresh cut flowers that we grow, and then also our eggs and maybe some of those dandelion jellies. I don't know, but we'll see. Since we do try to produce some of our own food, we do have to know how to preserve that food as well as store some of the food in bulk and for long-term use. One of the ways that we do that is by fermenting our food. So we have a grain mill, we also have the wheat berries, and we have our sourdough starter. We also keep water kefir grains as well as milk kefir grains, and then a SCOBY, which if you haven't heard about SCOBYs, it's an acronym that stands for Symbiotic Culture of Bacteria and Yeast. And that is what you would use to make kombucha. When you have these fermented foods, it's a great way to be able to preserve those foods a little bit longer. You also get the added benefits of having some of those prebiotics and probiotics that some of those offer. We also make our yogurt, which obviously is a cultured type of food. All of these things are great for boosting your immune system and supporting good gut health. When your immune system and your gut health is healthy, your energy is better, your sleep is better, your mental health is better, your attitude and mindset is better. And so again, it's all connected. And so being able to provide these types of foods for my family is really important to me. For long-term storage, we keep a lot of things in bulk. Some things like dry goods we'll put in these 5-gallon food safe buckets with the Gamma seal lids. Those are easier to open. And then also for things that we want to keep even longer, we will put in these Mylar bags, and we use oxygen absorbers to help also with just making sure that we decrease the chances of moisture or light or pests from getting into our food. There are tools that you can purchase to seal the Mylar bags, but I went ahead and just used our iron. And sometimes I'll use like an old straightener, and that works really well too. And actually I think it works a little bit better than the iron because it's a little bit bulky because of the iron. You have to be really careful when you're using it. So I would recommend either getting a tool that is made to do this or to be very careful, but do it at your own risk. These work really well and we haven't had any issues. I think one time we did have some wheat berries go bad, but I believe there was some moisture that they already had when I purchased the berries. Unfortunately, about half of that bucket was wasted. Since then, we haven't had any issues. We all know the importance of food, and when a crisis hits, we know it even more. We have recently seen those times where the grocery store has been light and we wonder how are we going to get the food that we need or the supplies that we need. So being able to prepare ahead of time is really important. And we know that we can't prepare for everything because there's a lot of different scenarios out there that can happen. But being able to be good stewards of what the Lord has given us, no matter what season. It's very biblical to be able to store up what the Lord is giving us and then be able to use it not only for our family, but also for our local communities. Hopefully this gave you some ideas on different methods of how to store your food, not just for short term, but also how to preserve it for long-term use. We've learned a lot of things during this homeschooling and homesteading journey, but one of the most important things that we learned is that we need to slow down and enjoy the journey. It's really easy to get caught up in what everyone else is doing and how they're doing it, and then thinking that we need to do it exactly that way. I want to encourage you to do it the way that suits your family best. It's always good to remember, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men.